The Friday Rugby Preview with Stuart Cameron.
Hello and welcome to the Friday Rugby Preview. Dale Clancy joining me this week, and let's crack on into it with the week ahead's rugby to look forward to involving Border's teams. Starting in the Premiership, no game for Hawick, who've completed their matches, and Jed Forest with one match to play. But Selkirk and Kelso are both on their travels to complete their season, and let's hear from Kelso's Director of Rugby, Neil Hinnigan, first of all, on their away trip to play Glasgow Hawks in, let's face it, a dead rubber now that Kelso have qualified for the playoffs in fourth spot.
Depending on the weather, probably be quite soft in places. I would have thought it's quite a long grass on the pitch up there, and could be a bit of a battle up front. Hawks are fairly physical up front and a big pack, so could be a fair old battle up there. They've come off the back of a good win against Heriot's, which obviously helped us as well. You know, it was a bit of a favour there. It saves us having to go up here for a must-win game, but we still want to go up there and put our best foot forward and try and win the match. We are looking for that consistency and momentum for obviously heading into the semi-final against Hawick on the 2nd of March. So we are going through with a fairly strong team, fairly settled. Angus McGregor comes in at loosehead prop for Grant Shields, a very well-deserved promotion from the bench for Angus. He's been superb this season. Another lad who's got under 20s prospects and so on, so he really deserves that. Cammy Thompson starts in the second row again. He's just, he got a bit of a knock confidence wise when he was dropped after the Accies game for Curry, but came on against Jed and had a bit of a stormer as well, so he deserves his start as well. So that's all really good and positive for us, that we're spreading it about a little bit to try and get a bit more depth around the squad. So backs are fairly settled, and we're looking forward to the match. Hawks, we beat them at home 29-14. Wasn't Hawks' best day, and that was obviously in the media at the time that Hawks hadn't had their best day down at Poynter, and they've got a few wrongs to right. And now that they've beat Heriot's, and I think their last games against Jed on the 2nd of March, they're really be aiming to get 3 wins from 3 for their remaining fixtures. So plenty to play for Hawks, and obviously there's plenty to play for ourselves.
Well, some would say wrap your best players in cotton wool and make sure they're in the side for the game against Hawick on March the 2nd. Others would say keep the winning momentum going. Where do you stand?
I think keep the momentum going. I know Robin's a cotton wool man, but I definitely think that Kelso have been one of the most consistent sides in the Premiership with, you look at their players and most of their starting lineup, they've played 13, 14, 15 games, consecutively. Dwayne Patterson's played in every single game, got every single point from the boot. So I don't think there's any reason to change it. You might be unfortunate and you might get one injury, you might get 2, but I just think you want to continue that momentum. And Kelso are developing that depth in their squad as well, that if there was a personnel was injured, they do have replacements and players that can come in. So for me, if you do have somebody who is perhaps 50-50, even 60-40, maybe look at trying to protect them. But if there's players fit and raring to go, then let them go. I think it's a difficult game in terms of where the players' mindset is, because they'll be thinking about perhaps that game against Hawick on March the 2nd. But I think the mentality of this Kelso side this season's different. They've taken the Premiership like a duck to water, and I would just let them see out the campaign and build towards that semi-final.
So you mentioned it there, March the 2nd will be the date for the semi-final playoffs. Hawick against Kelso at Mansfield Park, and the other match will be between Curry and Mar, and depending on what happens tonight, because they're playing each other at Millennium Park under the lights, the winner effectively will get the home tie in that semi-final. But the big debate at the moment is when's the final going to be, because looking at the fixture list, with the Cup coming up, with the Inter-District coming up, everything else happening, we're probably into May.
Yeah, I do think that it's a bit of a shambles in terms of the playoffs to culminate in the final, not really having that date because of cancellations and what have you. I think other things should move. I don't think it's with the realms of possibility that you just move another fixture so that we can have the finish of the season sooner. because it's obviously a little bit of a wait for the semi-final now. Not a huge wait, but it's a few weeks until the semi-final comes on, and it's going to be an even longer wait until we see the culmination of the season. It's just a bit clumsy the way it's been done, but I think with the introduction of the Inter-District Championship, it's obviously confused a few things slightly, and yeah, there's better ways, and I think if there was a burning desire from all those clubs to get it finished sooner, then it would be, but obviously they've all got their own incentives and objectives, so yeah, we're going to have a little bit of a wait.
Well, the other game in the Premiership, Selkirk's last game of the season, is against Herrick's Blues at Golden Acre. We can hear now from head coach at Selkirk, Sesh Henderson.
We're looking forward to our last league game this week up at Herrick's, up at Golden Acre. The guys were pretty disappointed with the overall performance against Hoyk. Strong side, but in areas we did underperform that day. And so we want to put that right in our last game and finish on a positive performance and just take a good mindset up to Edinburgh. For the last league game, we want to finish coming away with points. That's for sure. A few changes this week. So we've got Zen's head props away with Poland, and we've got a couple of Ross Nixon and Hugh Alderson are on holiday. So Bruce Riddle will come into the front row. We've got Josh Welsh coming to midfield, and Aaron McComb will move to 9 probably for this game. So that allows young Cameron Eason, who's been really well for the seconds and benching for the ones the last few games, to get a start, which is good for him. And we want to finish with a big performance before we go into a few border league games.
So nothing much really to play for, but how do the two teams approach something like that? I mean, Herrick's Blues will be really disappointed that they never made the playoffs. Selkirk, have not had a great season. They've been much better once again away from home. But how do you get your players up for something like that?
Yeah, it's a difficult one to approach. I think that, the Herrick's up until a couple of weeks ago we were probably thinking they were in the driving seat to get in the top 4, but wheels came off against Glasgow Hawks and Kelso stole a march and they nailed the position down. So obviously you look at it now and it's 7th versus 8th, and Selkirk have had a really underwhelming season, I think, in terms of the players that they perhaps have at their disposal, but it's just the way that their season's panned out. I think that Selkirk have had a better finish to the season. Their performances have improved, but you can hear there obviously a lot of rejigs and personnel and different players coming in, so it's an opportunity for these Selkirk players to end their season on a high, but I'm sure Herrick's will be wanting to do the same as well after the disappointment of a home defeat against Herrick's. We did say they had the 3 home games at the end of the season. They had an easy ride and an easy run in towards the end. They had the game against Hoyk, which was probably they were underdogs in that, but for every other single game they were favourites. So it's been a disappointing end and a disappointing season perhaps for both sides.
So I suppose the best thing that could come out of this is get some youngsters valuable Premiership time.
Yeah, and I think my argument there is I said months ago about the likes of Cam Eason, so it's nice to see him getting a start in the lineup this weekend. With the way that Selkirk seasons went and the way that Jed's seasons went, I just think he should have been brought in a lot sooner. There's a lot of good components to that Selkirk back division. Aaron McComb at 9, I know they play him at 10 as well. Hugo Alderton's been in there at 9 and playing really well. But there was probably an opportunity there to try and reshuffle things and try things differently, because Callum Anderson's really settled in at fullback. He is perhaps one of the steadiest players in that side, and perhaps he's one of the most impressive fullbacks in the Premiership as well. So he's a key component, but he's settled there. He's not really playing 10 or 12. Aaron McComb's got the ability to move out. There's older players in there as well, with the likes of Ross Nixon, who's been again put in a great shift for Selkirk. But part of that is future proofing. Really, Sesh Henderson is probably about 8 games into the season knew that they weren't going down. Probably even sooner than that, they weren't going down. So why not try something different? And I think Cam Eason's a really quality player. He's a different 10. He likes to play a flat pass. He needs a little bit of development. He's still got a lot of growing to do as well. He's a young individual. But I felt that there was probably opportunity to bring him in sooner rather than later. But the opportunity is now, and he's got one game to try and show what he's about ahead of next year.
In Division 1, no game for Melrose, but Gala have a match to end their campaign in the league. They're away at Highland, and here's their Director of Rugby, Ewan Swinton.
Yep, we are resuming action this week with the long trip up to Highland after a pretty disappointing outcome to our last game. But we walked off the pitch from that one thinking, my goodness, are there any positives you can take from this at all? But yes, there are, because I think one of the things that we've recognised, and this was partly in a player meeting just in the last couple of days, is that perhaps that top 2 inches that we've talked about in the past is not quite right at times. We've gone up to some long journeys and had some magnificent performances. Our game at GHA was the best we've played all year. And then we go up to Dundee and it goes in another direction. So maybe it's not necessarily just the personnel, but how they're approaching and thinking about a game that's the problem. And it's the players themselves that recognise that. And that's a really good thing. It's so positive for the club going forward. So we are going to head up to Highland with a pretty strong team on Saturday. We're definitely going to be in the mindset that this is not just a season whimpering out, but it's a season we want to end with a bang and then head towards the league season next year in a very positive vein, targeting really positive outcomes at the top end of the table, not the bottom. So we'll do that. We'll get on that bus, we'll go up there, and the determination will be to win, not just to get the game out of the way. So yeah, feeling very positive about the game. It's a great group of guys who are progressing. This season has definitely been one where we knew we weren't going to be promoted, or we were pretty sure. We hoped to be mid-table and to develop and to grow as a team, and I think we've definitely done that. And to hear the players talking in such positive terms about recognising their own shortfalls and what they can do to fix them is massively positive. So yeah, we approach the last game of the season very positively, but very much I think looking at it as the first game of next season in terms of national leagues. And we also are aiming to finish off the Border League season really enjoying our rugby and getting the best positive outcomes from the games to come there that we possibly can.
So a rebuilding season for Gala, really, with some fresh faces coming into the squad. And again, it's very much with an eye on next season.
Yeah, I think we said weeks and weeks ago that Gala do have, the focus is on next year now. They've probably been one of those teams that have had a bit of an underwhelming season, but National One's been a strange division this year because Ayr have been so powerful and and consistent right up until they won the championship. They were never looking like there was going to be any other conclusion for that division. So Gala have been, part of that cluster of teams that have been able to pick up wins and then go on a run of a couple of defeats and pick up a win again and get a bit of confidence. But they're sitting in 8th in the table, and after the last few years being up towards the top, that's an underwhelming campaign for them. So the focus is on next year, different coaching setup as well, some young coaches in there as well as an old one in you and Robbie, but they've got a different coaching setup, so a chance to go away from home, pressure's off, try a few things against a Highland side who have been impressive for the mainstay of the championship, but again fell off the radar a wee bit.
Well, National 2 is what we're focusing on tomorrow on Rugby Radio. Everyone in the Borders hoping that Peebles can get promoted, and at the other end of the table, Berwick trying to avoid relegation. We're also at the game between Lasswade and Falkirk tomorrow for full commentary of that match between the sides in 2nd and 3rd place. Then commentary of second half of Kirkcaldy versus Peebles. Let's listen to what Peebles boss Graham Patterson has to say.
We've been winning, we've been doing well, so there's just sort of a couple of wee tweaks here and there. Front row will remain the same. Second row pretty similar as well with Ross Brown and Hamish Bell. Back row's probably the keenest one. Rowan McKeever will come back in there. He offers a great amount of rugby knowledge and intelligence, and also a good line-out threat as well from the back row as well, both attacking and defensively. Backline's pretty settled, although obviously we don't have Ross, so Jack Harrison will remain at 10 with Caelan McKeever at 9, and a fairly settled backline, outside backs in there with Donald Anderson remaining in the squad to offer his experience at the back, just to marshal that backfield. So we've got some strength and depth as well through having a good number of players back in contention now, so we feel that we've got a real impact from the bench. John and William Napier front row wise, and also Kenny Clyde is the other forward sub, and Buster Davison shown up well in training, and also particularly in that Hoyt game when he came on and got his opportunity, is given a slot on the bench for this week as well, and see how we can impact from there. So yeah, it's a positive camp. We're just looking to just take this game and give it everything, and come away with those 5 points.
Graham Patterson, well, how do you see these games going? It's a real gift at the end of the season for us, and a very exciting league, as it was last year, of course.
Yeah, it was an interesting league last year. I can see it kind of going the same way. In the first game between Lasswade and Falkirk, it's almost a kind of straight shootout. Whoever loses this game is out of the promotion hunt, and then it's up to Peebles and the other team who's left. And and that's even saying if Peebles were to be defeated on the road, they're still in the promotion hunt. It just means that their task is a little bit harder. I think the pressure is on Falkirk because they've got to do the chasing, and they've got to do heavy chasing as well, because Peebles, you can hear Graham Patterson saying there as well, they want to come away with 5 points. That's their objective. They know that they want to go into that last weekend with a point cushion. So Falkirk have a sticky game against a team in third, one place below them. They all have the same objective, and it's one of those games that if you chase too much, you might come unstuck. So, big weekend for those sides, Peebles, Lasswade and Falkirk. But, speaking with my Peebles glasses on, I'll be hoping that they can get over the line. But being a Peebles fan is like being a Scotland fan. You never get too hopeful. But they've got a great team there. They do have a really, really solid team, a lot of impressive players, and they've got a really, really good coach in Graham Patterson. He's an experienced coach from his time in the Premiership with Musselburgh. He's a really driven individual, so he'll have those Peebles players well drilled for this weekend. But for me, I think it's still Falkirk. Pressure's on them because I think they're still favourites to go up.
Various permutations, of course. The simplest one is 2 bonus point wins for Peebles. They can't be caught and they will be promoted. Easier said than done, though. Yeah,
it's easier said than done because Falkirk in the backs are a side that can cut any team open. The only team that they've not been able to cut open this season's Peebles, and the only difficulty for Peebles is that a couple of teams have turned them over as well. Newton Stuart and Lasswade have defeated them, so it means that picking up bonus point victories in National 2 isn't easy. The results at times, especially that Newton Stuart one away from home and at home, Peebles drew against them, in a game that they probably should have been beaten in. You can go with what your gut instinct is and what form has been, but sometimes changes in personnel, such as Ross Wolfenden not playing, could have a huge impact. So easier said than done, Stuart.
Well, at the other end, Berwick host Gordonians, and here's forwards coach for Berwick, Paul Pringle.
I think it's probably fair to say it's a much bigger game for us than it perhaps is for them, albeit they'll want to finish as high as possible in the league table. We had a really tough game against them up there. It was nip and tuck. I think we probably let ourselves down a little bit in the scrum, but we did create opportunities and we run them pretty close. I think the key for me was probably our first phase defence, which we've been working on this week. And we've got Ben Nicholson back in the centre just to help shore up things there. That's our main focus. I mean, we're not in control of events elsewhere, but we know that, if we can get our home wins, we've got 3 games left now, that would assure our place in the league, which really is the key priority. In terms of team selection this week, so we're pretty much full strength apart from Ecor's still out with a shoulder injury, and unfortunately we lost James Grieve up at Falkirk. However, we do have some new faces back in the team. So we've got young Callum Arthur has stepped up to the first 15. He had time up at Falkirk and by all accounts played really well. So Callum's a big lad. He's a good young player. He's been training with us for a little while now. Now he's turned 18. I think he'll be a great asset to the team, and we've evidenced over the last couple of years with guys like Stu Farnaby that just getting them in the environment, getting them involved with the players, just seeing the way we play and train, etc. It really helps bring these young lads on pretty quickly. So we'll be looking for exactly the same with Callum. He'll definitely get game time on Saturday, and we'll just look to see how that plays out. In other news, Jordan Jackson's back at 15 after an injury he'd received up at Peebles, so that's good. Jordan gives a real attacking threat in the back line, and between himself, Adrian Rose and Jack Dalrymple, that back three is really strong. So we would hope to be causing a few issues there. So all in all, yeah, we're fairly close to our full strength team, and we'll just look forward to getting the game on Saturday, and hopefully just starting to pull away from Aberdeen at the foot of the table.
Berwick back at their happy place against a team who have nothing to win this season. That might have a bearing on it.
Yeah, it's maybe not been the happiest of places this season. In the years gone by, their form has been really, really good at Scremerston, but obviously they've only picked up 2 victories so far this season, Berwick, and they'll be hoping to make it another one this weekend against Gordonians, because Aberdeen are breathing down their neck, but they're 5 points behind in the division. So at the bottom of the table, it's a kind of a light breath perhaps on the back of Berwick's necks, but. You would say that Gordonian's not a lot to play for, a long travel as well. Berwick have got a really strong squad, welcoming some players back. So, with a good support behind them, they'll be hoping to pick up some points and get a little bit more breathing room between themselves and Aberdeen. And
Aberdeen hosts Stumel at Ruby's Law. We're certainly keeping an eye on that one as well.
Yeah, we will be. Aberdeen have obviously got a game still to play against some tough teams, and one of them, Stuart's Melville. Even though they're 6th in the division, they've had 3 point stock so far this season, but their form towards the end's been a little bit more impressive. So I don't think Stuart's Melville are a team that have given up the ghost yet. They've had a pretty consistent side. They've suffered from injuries, but when you look at their team sheet, it's some of the same names cropping up again and again. So Stuart's Melville will be going to Ruby's Law with the intentions of going away with a victory, and the way form has been, and Aberdeen have been, you wouldn't argue against that, but it'll be a tight game.
Well, the National Shield and the East Bowl taking place this weekend as well. Round 2 of the Shield, and it's Hawick Harlequins against Haddington. Here's the thoughts of Quins' Adam Hall.
Yeah, it's been a while now since our last competitive game. It was a good victory against the Lindeen. We made hard work of it at times, but we were pleased ultimately with the result and the bonus point. Since then, we've had a successful tour to Wales. We had a little run out against Bargoed. Great hospitality from Bargoed, and something that we hope to continue doing in the future. 2 years' time, it'll be 60th anniversary. But it's back to business this week. It'll be great to test ourselves against opposition from the league above. We've got a strong squad to choose from, as is normally the case at home. We'd have liked a couple more training sessions, but weather's kind of stopped us doing that. But strong squad and a home game, so yeah, we'd love to go a step further in the cup, see where we stand.
So Quins, up and down season they've had, but home advantage against a good East League 1 team in second place, and obviously a league above Quins as well. That's a 1:30 kick-off.
Yeah, it's a difficult task for Quins, you would say, especially playing a team above them. They've had a bit of a turbulent campaign, obviously kind of more mid-table in their division, and Haddington are a strong outfit. They'll just be hoping they can obviously try and make home advantage count, make it difficult for their opposition, and try and play to their strengths, because it's cup rugby, and you just have to turn up and put in one good performance on the day, and get in the hat for the next round.
The only border derby of the weekend is in another round 2 clash in the National Shield. Hawick Lindeen from East League 2 versus Langham in East League 1. Ewan Welsh will be down there for the 3 o'clock kick-off, filming that one for us and reporting on the game. Hawick Youth, by the way, playing right before that match, so a bit of a double header there. But let's get the thoughts of Langham's head coach Craig Hislop, and first Lindeen's Gary Alexander.
They'll, I would say, be favourites. They're sitting mid-table in East 1, whilst we're sitting bottom in East 2. They've won the last 3 league meetings between the sides. Our last win was up at Milltown in February 19, although we did win a pre-season friendly in August 19. And apart from being in the Shield, we will also be playing for the Neil Rennick Memorial Trophy. That's been played for the last few years between the teams. Neen was a tremendous back row hooker for the Lindeen, who passed away all too young, and really enjoyed his tussles with Langham. So there's a wee bit silverware on offer, as well as a place in the next round on Saturday. So as I say, we'd love to try and advance. We've had some great days in the Cup and the Shield in the past, and hopefully there'll be another one on Saturday where I'd imagine a fair support will come up through the tunnel for Langham. And it should be a great day at the Volunteer as we follow on for the Hawick Youth game at 1 o'clock. So a double header, loads of rugby at the Volunteer, so get yourself along.
We had an extra training session this weekend to try and get the boys from the uni back and get a full team run. So the boys are up for this game, and it's quite important, and again there's a bit of longevity to the season. Our next fixture planned for the 6th of April, so hopefully we can get the win on Saturday. Squad wise, we lost a few boys at the Linlithgow game. Both the Wilson brothers are injured, so we've got Tommy Hope back for a hike for the weekend. Chris Tate will be back in the front row to replace Brady. So pretty strong across the squad, and hopefully getting the win and progressing to the next round.
So on paper should be a Langham win, being as they are in the first division, but home advantage for Lindeen.
Yeah, you would imagine that Langham going into this game, our favourites, as you say there, Stuart, but it's a border derby, and there's a lot of history between Langham and all the Hawick sides, and in terms of this episode and this chapter of the rivalry between Langham and Lindeen, it'll be an interesting game between those two sides. And again, it's Cup Rugby, but I think Langham are potentially, they're the stronger of the two sides. Lindeen haven't had a great season as well, so obviously it'll be a Langham that will be hoping to try and march on in the Cup.
In the East Bowl, round 2, that sees Gala YM at home to Edinburgh Northern and Earlston hosting Lismore. Now, you'll recall, of course, Lismore were the team that beat them earlier in the season, which really came as a bit of a shock because Lismore had, I think, only won one game. Earlston had gone through the season unbeaten. A big turnaround, and they were very much outplayed and also nilled as well. Here's the thoughts of Earlston coach Cammy Hill.
A really tough test. Obviously, we beat them quite convincing at the start of the season, and they caused us our first defeat up there, in which a game I felt we just got a bit complacent in. Obviously, we had won all our games first half of the season. We were expecting just to show up and everything was going to work for us. That wasn't the case. They dominated in the forwards, and their line speed and defence was really good. Also caused us a bit of problems in the back three with high balls, and obviously trying to gain territory. The back three were dropping balls and fumbling, and then when they got scrums, they were on the front foot. But obviously after Medics, we turned solely to this game, and I feel like we've shored up in areas. We've had really good numbers. We've had a lot of new faces coming in over the last few weeks, which is good to see, and we've been able to really work on our structures and how we contain Lismore. We were hoping that we can go away and rectify that defeat we suffered up there earlier on in the season, and we can really push on to the final, which as a coach and as a club we seem pretty confident that we have got the capabilities of doing that as long as we turn up with the right mindset. So as we go to squad selection, it's been a nightmare this week, but in a good sense, as we've had 25 boys training over the last few weeks, so we've really got that strength and depth there. The only person that's missing is Aaron Patterson, who suffered another concussion at Edinburgh Medics, which effectively puts him out for the season. But apart from that, I would say this is probably the strongest squad we've put out all season, which is really good to see that even getting near the end of the season, we're really pushing to try and do something as a club. We're hoping for a really good performance on Saturday, and we can push on, hopefully, fingers crossed, to the East Bowl final.
Well, as I mentioned earlier, a shock after Earlston were doing so well in the league and then lost to Lismore, who were in the bottom end of the table, but a chance to gain revenge this time. Yeah, it definitely is, and I think Earlston themselves, they've had a positive campaign overall, completely chalk and cheese to what it was like last year, so it's again that opportunity just to get up for one fixture, one game, put in a big performance and try and put to bed some of those demons that they had earlier on against Lismore. So best of luck to Earlston, and they'll be hoping to march on in the bowl. Well, we're on air on Rugby Radio tomorrow at 1:30 all the way through till 5 o'clock for a 3.5 hour feast of club rugby, and you can tune in at rugbyradio.co.uk or bordersrugby.net. 2 commentary matches for you from National 2 as 3 of the 4 clubs in those games try to get promoted. Hope you can join us tomorrow, but for now, from Dale Clancy and myself, a very good night.